We got breaking news. It looks like environmental law is going to bring down Alligator Alcatraz and Donald Trump's inhumane treatment of migrants, because a federal judge in Miami, Judge Williams, just issued her preliminary injunction after a 5-day trial in which she found that the federal government, working with the state of Florida, violated federal environmental law because of the location of what they call Alligator Alcatraz, this detention center, this temporary detention center with tents in the middle of the Everglades. That's the problem. But she says because it's in the middle of the Everglades and the middle of the Big Cypress National Preserve that Florida is committed to preserving as part of the wetlands in the ecosystem of Florida. It's the thing that keeps water flowing in Florida from Lake Okeechobee down to and through the Everglades. She found because there was no environmental impact statement that was properly created in order to assess the impacts of human beings on the environment. You know, how much runoff water is going to end up with contaminants in the hydrology, in the water table of the Everglades. You know, all of that. It was built without permits from counties, from county approval, no approval whatsoever. And she said because of that, she is ordering the shutdown of Alligator Alcatraz, and I mean the shutdown. She's going to allow, under her preliminary injunction, the remaining people there, the couple hundred people that are there. Florida already admitted that it is a federally funded facility ultimately under the control of ICE and Homeland Security, and therefore she is ordering that they start winding that operation down. She's not ordering it shut immediately, but she wants a natural attrition, she called it. And when it zeroes out, they are done with Alligator Alcatraz because they never did the appropriate environmental permitting, the environmental impact statement. Therefore, they violated the Administrative Procedures Act because it was arbitrary and capricious. And this is the power of a federal judge on full display here. I'm going to cover it more here on MeidasTouch Network and Legal AF. I'm Michael Popok. How did we get here? There were 2 cases, and I don't want you to confuse them, dealing with Alligator Alcatraz. That's not its real name. The real name, as Judge Williams listed in her order, is the South Florida Soft-Sided Facility South. Now I know why they call it Alligator Alcatraz. It's because these are tents. And the government, both state and federal, admitted that this is a temporary detention center until they can place these people in different locations. Hold that thought, because the judge is going to hold them to that it's temporary, and she's going to wind them down by way of her injunction. Now, in order to get there, so the 2 cases, one had to do with the due process rights of the people actually there who are being denied their right to consult with lawyers. A case brought by the American Civil Liberties Union before Judge Ruiz, a Trump appointee. He found, I don't have jurisdiction over this because of the unique location of this facility, which sits at the intersection of Miami-Dade County and Collier County. In fact, that facility sits on a piece of property which was locally and governmentally known as TNT. No, not dynamite, but the Dade Collier Training and Transfer Airport, because there's an airport strip there. That is in Miami-Dade County. The buildings, or the soft-sided structures, are in Collier County, which is Middle District of Florida for federal court purposes, and Miami-Dade Dade County is South Florida, like that. So Ruiz said, well, I'm going to kick the case to Middle District of Florida because I don't see how I have jurisdiction. How do you not have jurisdiction? Judge Williams, who sits right next to him or on the same floor in the same courthouse, she went through the whole analysis. She said, first of all, this facility, although built by Florida, is fully funded by the feds. It's controlled by ICE and an ICE regional field office in Miami. In fact, even in Ruiz's case, one of the facts that developed is that Trump folded, the Department of Justice folded, and they set up, after the suit was filed, they set up an immigration court and processing center in Krome, Krome, Krome facility in Miami-Dade County. This is all Miami-Dade County. So Judge Williams very quickly said, I have venue. Plus, state defendants, the state never argued, I don't have venue, and you have filed brief after brief and motion after motion, so you have waived the argument that we are in the wrong courthouse. Let's get to the merits. She then moved to the merits, and she went through methodically, and she had testimony during her trial from hydrologists, from environmental impact people. The Miccosukee Tribe is part of this because this is part of their tribal lands for hunting and fishing. They're the custodians of that land. And so they joined with the Friends of the Everglades Society to sue. The other side of the case was the feds, Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, and the state of Florida. And so in order to make her analysis to shut down and wind down effectively Alligator Alcatraz, she looked carefully at the elements of an injunction. The first is that there's a likelihood of success on the merits. That's the first thing that a judge has to find in order to give somebody an injunction on behalf of the plaintiff, the movant. She said, in order to do that, in this area of environmental impact, I have to find that there's been final agency action. That's one. A major federal action or involvement. That's two. And three, that there has been non-compliance with an environmental impact statement. Okay, well, it's relatively easy. Final agency action, the camp is built. The buildings are built. That's done. They made the decision. They built the buildings. Two, major federal action, ICE and federal funding is all over this. There's $800 million apparently that's been set aside for Florida to build these detention centers. That and ICE effectively runs and controls them. So the judge said, all right, major federal action, done. Three, is there noncompliance with an environmental impact statement? Yes. Everybody concedes that Florida and the feds never bothered to get it. And how could they get it up and running? That takes like 6 months to a year to create. They built the thing like 2 months ago. So she said, all right, likelihood of success in the merits goes to the plaintiff. She then turned to irreparable harm, and she said, that's easy. I had all of the really uncontroverted testimony of environmental impact consultants, scientists, hydrologists from Miami-Dade County, independently. One person testified, and this was very compelling for the judge. She put it in her order. One person testified that there will be 800,000 square feet of additional water runoff because of the facility into the Everglades. That's a lot of runoff. And the judge said that's 10 million gallons of runoff coming from 800,000 square feet of new hardscape that's been put because of the facility. And the judge says, yeah, that's a major impact. So having gone through all of that, she then issued the following order. And I want to read it to you and explain it to you. This is the order that the judge has come up with, which is the wind down of Alligator Alcatraz. She said the court enters a preliminary injunction. This is on page 80 of 82. The court enters a preliminary injunction prohibiting the state and federal defendants from installing any additional industrial style lighting or doing any paving, filing, excavating, or fencing, or doing any other site expansion, including placing or erecting additional buildings. So we knew that was coming because she already issued a temporary restraining order on that 2 weeks ago. No more building. Two, she said, they're prohibited from the state and federal defendants bringing any additional persons onto the TNT site. That's this Alligator Alcatraz site, who were not already being detained at the site on the day of this order, which is today. So no new people, wave off, fly over, you're not landing here. Okay, that's two. So she freezes in place the people that are there, the several hundred people. Then three, she says, the preliminary injunction shall include among those who are acting in concert. So everybody is covered by it, federal and state. And then she says on paragraph 4 on page 81, not later than 60 days from the date of this order, and once the population attrition allows for the safe implementation of this order, the defendants shall remove the temporary fencing that's up, that's stopping the tribe from being able to hunt, the Sunbelt lighting fixtures, and all generators, gas, sewage, and other waste receptacles that were installed on the project, which means take out all the infrastructure improvements that were at Alligator Alcatraz. In her footnote, she says where she talks about natural attrition, she says, based on the defendant's representations that the site is currently being used as a transportation spoke to other facilities, a temporary transit spot, the court is relying on programmatic attrition of the camp's population within the next 60 days. So she figures once they freeze in place the amount of people that are there and they transit them all out and don't let any new people in, we're done with Alligator Alcatraz, and the demolition of Alligator Alcatraz has to start in the next 60 days. That's where we're at right now, folks. So where do we go from here? Well, we don't go anywhere, but where the Trump administration is going to go is bashing Judge Williams, obviously. They're going to ask her to stay her preliminary injunction, which she may or may not grant. I mean, she took a lot of evidence in. She may find, no, I don't think you have a compelling defense at all. I don't think you have a chance in hell of winning, a snowball's chance in hell of winning, in my words. And therefore, I'm not going to grant you a stay, which means they're going to have to run to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, which sits in Atlanta, which is occupied. There's a number of judges who used to practice in Miami or were judges in Miami who are on the 11th Circuit. Chief Judge William Pryor is up there. It leans to the right. I'll be frank, not MAGA right, but it leans to the right. And so we're going to have to see with that. If they grant the stay, they may grant it at least an administrative stay to allow for emergency briefing at the 11th Circuit in order to render a ruling. In the meantime, if they stay the injunction, then they'll be able to continue to use this what has now been referred to as a temporary transit spot, as opposed to this hard prisons that Kristi Noem likes to talk about. And then they'll be briefing. There'll be a ruling, and whoever's on the losing end will probably try to take it on an emergency application up to the United States Supreme Court. We'll be back in session in October, but we'll certainly be handling emergencies like this. But the takeaway here on this hot take is that we have a federal judge in Judge Williams who's ordered effectively the winding down and the ultimate demolition of Alligator Alcatraz in the next 60 days. I'm Michael Popok. I'll continue to follow it right here on the MeidasTouch Network and over on Legal AF, the YouTube channel, where we cover 10, 12 videos a day. And of course, we got the new Legal AF Substack. I do 2 live reports every day on the Legal AF Substack as well to bring you at-the-minute information just like this. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.